Made possible through support from ARC Thrift Stores, Colorado Developmental Disabilities Council, Developmental Pathways, the Limbaugh Law Firm, and the ARC of Aurora. A Think Change training. Hey there, everyone. Thanks again for joining us again for another Think Change podcast and vodcast training series, all about finances, assets, and disability, and really what you need to know. Today's episode is all about employment and people with disabilities, and I'm here today joined with another special guest who's an external expert in our community who's really going to be able to break down some really important questions for us. So as a gentle reminder, we're not here today to provide you with any individualized medical or legal advice. So if you need something that's more specific to your needs, we advise that you go consult with your own independent advisors. So I would love for our special guests to introduce themselves, a little bit about you, what you do, all that good stuff.
All right, thanks. First of all, let me say thank you for inviting me. This is, I think, a great opportunity and a great work that you guys are doing. But I'm Melanie Hansbrook, so hi everybody. I work for the Colorado Office of Employment First, and I'm a curriculum developer and trainer there. My specialty area, we all have one at that office, mine is in benefits counseling, and that is really how work affects people's public benefit programs. I've been doing work in benefits counseling for about 20 years. So I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Been around for a while, and so I do that work for the Office of Employment First. For those of you that haven't heard of us, we are in Colorado, specific to Colorado, but our office is really focused on being a lead in Colorado to get our state to have equitable employment for all people with disabilities, regardless of disability, and regardless of whatever label you may have in your lives. We all have that right to equitable employment. So that's what we work towards as an office. We do that through basically three different ways. The first way I would say is through systems innovation. We work with a lot of partners and we have a lot of collaborations, and doing our work together with as many people as we can have involved as possible towards policy changes and breaking down barriers, removing barriers, and busting myths. There's a lot of myths out there around employment and people with disabilities. And then promoting technology and using that to support individuals in getting employment. And I mentioned the collaboration, the partnerships. That's the second way that we really kind of tackle our work. We have partnerships and collaborations with state agencies, with people and groups of people with disabilities, professionals, really all kinds of stakeholders. Everybody's got to buy into this. I mean, I'm probably a little biased because it's the work I do, but everybody's got to buy into people working and having the option to work. And so collaboration is huge in that piece. And then I would say really the third way that we do this is really backing up what we do by how we train. We call it training excellence. And really it's using evidence-based or evidence-supported strategies that we can use, and along with our experience and our knowledge as well, what we can use that to help others promote the same work that we're doing and really promote those employment first philosophies. And so that's really kind of how we work. And I would just say in a nutshell, to kind of wrap that all up in a less probably official sounding way, is to just say that we believe in employment first as a philosophy. It's a national philosophy as well, but really employment first is a philosophy in the Office of Employment First in Colorado. We believe that regardless of disability, you'll probably hear me say that 1,000 times, regardless of disability, I don't care who you are, you have the right to employment, and you should have the opportunity towards employment. And employment that's meaningful to you, employment that is something that you love to get up and go do every day, and something that you're getting paid for at a competitive wage. You're getting paid at a rate that anybody else would get paid in that job. And then employment that's integrated in your community. We all know that employment is a key piece to a healthy life, and so we all have that right. And so that's what we do at the Office of Employment First is all different. We all work in all different specialized areas to kind of promote employment first philosophies throughout Colorado.
Which is such incredible and important work, and what a positive social impact. I mean, really.
Yes.
And I think you saying that you want to be breaking myths is something that's so important, because we always say at our organization that training and education is the least intrusive form of advocacy. And so through the work that you're doing, you're really having that meaningful dialogue to change these potentially societal assumptions that people with disabilities don't want to work, that they can't work, and that could not be further from the truth.
No.
They want to be contributing citizens.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
And I always, if I have an employer that I'm talking with an employer, you're having problems filling a position, have you looked for or aggressively hired people outside of probably what society would call the norm?
Yeah.
Because there's people out there that want that work. So
Yeah.
And can do that work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful work that you guys are doing.
Well,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
that introduction.
Yeah.
A question that I have for you is I know that you're Colorado specific, but nearly all states actually have some type of employment first effort. Might you share some information about that?
Yeah, definitely. Employment First it's a philosophy, and it's a movement. And I feel like it's gaining speed and picking up, and it's been doing that over the past several years. And Colorado's kind of been leading the way, but yes, it's national too. There's a great organization on the national level called National APSE. We're very acronym happy in this world. If you don't know that yet, you will. And APSE is an acronym. It stands for the Association of Persons Supporting Employment First. There's just no F in that acronym, but it's National APSE. So they have a website, and on their website they talk about how there are 40 states right now that have either adopted legislation or they've adopted state policy that says competitive employment, integrated employment is the first option, should be the first option, and it should be the preferred option for people with disabilities, again, regardless of disability. And so 40 is not all 50, but we're close. And I will say, if you want to see, if you're outside of Colorado and you want to see what your state has done in terms of the Employment First movement, you can go to the National APSE website. It's apse.org, apse.org. And they have a state map, or the United States map with all states. And you can see what your state has done in terms of legislation, state policy, combination of the two, and see where you're at with your state. And if your state isn't where you want it to be, then start those grassroots efforts, get some collaborations and partnerships going to start pushing that in your state as well. Definitely. Call Colorado, will help you too.
Well, I think that's so important that, 40 states is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, definitely.
But still, we're not all the way there.
Yeah, we're close.
We're close.
We're close.
I love that you say, get out there, use your voice, share your lived experience, so that hopefully there can
is huge.
Yeah, that there can hopefully be continued impact and, I guess, growth really amongst this initiative to hopefully reach those other states that are beyond the 40 that haven't quite gotten there yet.
Yeah. Definitely. It's huge. And I think what resonates the most, I'm a professional in this field and I've been here obviously quite a while, but I think what resonates the most with other individuals, with professionals, and with legislature is those personal stories. And so if this is something that sparks your interest, then don't be afraid to get out there and find the avenue to help you get your voice out there.
I love it. That's wonderful advice. Use your voice, use your story.
Yes.
Another question is really the national, we've talked about national, right? The National Employment First movement and ongoing momentum are really backed up in disability federal law and public policy and court rulings. And so you talked a little bit about this, about using your voice. Are there other ways that someone could potentially be a part of that advocacy?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to highlight just some places to kind of start. And I'm going to say that these are places to start. But once you get started, you're going to see who's involved, what agencies, what professionals, what other people with disabilities, what support individuals, who's involved in this movement. You can branch out from there. But if this is brand new to you, first of all, on a national basis, I've already mentioned them, a great place to start is National APSE. Because they're doing the work that we're doing in Colorado, they're doing it just on the national level. They're influencing policy. They're supporting states and moving forward. All kinds of resources. They help train people, educational opportunities, again, on a national basis. And so APSE.org is them, or you can contact the Office of Employment First. We'll get you connected as well. Colorado Office of Employment First. And then the next I'll highlight is the Colorado local version of APSE, which is Colorado APSE. So a lot of states, not each state, a lot of states have their local chapter. And so that would be a great place for you to get involved as well. In Colorado, it's a great organization that comes together with lots of different types of stakeholders. So it's not just a bunch of agency employees. It's not all state agencies, although there are some. It's not all professionals in the field. It's people with disabilities. It's their support systems. It's all kinds of community members that are coming together, and they're working on some of those base pieces of what promotes employment first and what makes overall employment for people with disabilities equitable. For example, I work on the benefits counseling subcommittee. I mean, surprise. Benefits counseling is my thing. So that would be one subcommittee. So if you hear me talk about benefits counseling and you want to be involved and you want to have some influence on that service or how work affects benefits, then join that group and come be on that subcommittee with me. But if your thing is more, you want to make sure people have training opportunities, or you get to share your lived experience, those are all opportunities. And yeah, they're kind of separate pods in APSE, but they all come together to ultimately promote equitable employment for people with disabilities. So that's a local one. And then another local opportunity that I would mention it's called EFAP, another acronym. Of course, right?
Of course, another acronym, right?
Yeah, exactly. So EFAP stands for Employment First Advisory Partnership, which is kind of a mouthful, actually. But it's a group of, again, a wide variety of stakeholders, and they're really meeting to figure out where are we at in Colorado in terms of employment first and how can we move that needle forward. Where do we need to have more support? Where we need to have more information? Where can we support the agencies that are out doing the work? And how can we change those systems so more people, businesses, more people outside of our world of disability really believe and understand that people with disabilities can work and want to work. Mm-hmm. And like everything you said, we need more people to be on board with that. And so that's an organization in Colorado that's on the leading edge of helping us push forward in that area. So those are 3 places you can start. A couple, of course, just local to Colorado, and then one national. But because Colorado is one of the leading states in employment first, Colorado has worked with other states through EFAP and through the Office of Employment First and some of our other state agencies in helping other states learn from the mistakes that we've made and the successes that we've had. And so I would just encourage you to keep that in mind, that you're not out there alone. You can get information and advice and all that stuff from Colorado and from the other states that are out there, and we can help connect you. So if you want to get involved, if you want to be that advocate and you get your voice out there, you just want one place to start, come and start at the Office of Employment First, Colorado Office of Employment First. You can email us at info@employmentfirst.org, or go to our website, all spelled out, coloradoemploymentfirst.org, and you can sign up for a newsletter, things like that. Email us there, call us, whatever, and we'll help get you connected to those organizations that I mentioned. So
many amazing ways that people can get involved. I mean, it's not like you could do this one thing. You could do multiple things. There's ways that you can get involved as an individual, as an organization, as a stakeholder. So
and if you're new to it, you can just get involved and you can just listen in at first. If you're not sure if you're comfortable with being part of an organization like EFAP, the Employment First Advisory Partnership, just listen into the meetings, listen into what they're talking about and where they're going. And if that sparks an interest in you and you want to provide some input, you'll have that opportunity. So your level of involvement is in your control. And then if you find that niche area that you really are passionate about, then get involved. Yeah.
Well, it's obviously you're very passionate about this work, and it's good. It's good to be passionate about the work that you do, because that way you can make.
Because I do it every day, right?
You do it every day.
I want to do it.
Yeah, you know that you're changing lives. You know that you're making an impact, and so that you're really giving people this opportunity to better understand what this could all look like as someone who maybe wants to get a job or maybe limited in their resources. And there's so many wonderful ways to get involved. I think a very important question is, we've talked about the advocacy work, we've talked about kind of the national movement, but a question I have for you is CIE. So what on earth is competitive integrated employment? Employment for people with disabilities has looked very, very different over the decades. So can you share a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So anybody can go out and Google competitive integrated employment. And one of the top things that you'll get in terms of your search results is going to be a very governmenty link, governmenty worded official definition of what competitive integrated employment, or CIE, is. And you can read that. If you're like me, you last about five seconds, if even that, on reading the governmenty stuff, which is weird because I'm in benefits. But anyways, you can read that, and like I said, it is very governmenty. But what you can think of it as is real work for real pay. So that's a much simpler way than those long words, or the governmenty speak. And so what it means is, you're a person with a disability, again, regardless of disability, we don't want to assign like, oh, your disability is too severe, or it's this disability, you can't work. That's just not the case. Right. It's not reality. So in competitive integrated employment is a person with a disability is going to work in a career that they've chosen, that they're passionate about, and they're getting paid for that work the same wage that anybody without a disability.
What a concept.
I know, it seems like it shouldn't be that hard, right?
It should not be.
In fact, like, my job shouldn't even exist. It should be so obvious. But for whatever reason, we're working to get there. So they're going to work, they're getting paid that competitive wage that anybody without a disability would also get paid in that same job. And then they're going to work in a place that's integrated. They're going to work, and there may be people with disabilities that work there, but there's also people without disabilities that work there. And when they go to work, they have the same opportunities for career advancement, for promotion, and to move around in their career or change careers, whatever, if just like everybody else gets to do. And so that's really what CIE is. It's real work for real pay, just like the rest of us.
And I think that's so important to share, because I've been in the disability community going on 19 years now, and I remember there was a time where there was something called piece rate work.
Yes.
And that certainly could exist, outside of Colorado, but here we don't really do that anymore. And it was basically like, we have this job for you, and you will get, for example, maybe it's like an admin type duties, and you will get paid a rate for each envelope that maybe you stuff. And it was, for example, maybe it was like 5 cents an envelope, right? And it wasn't like an hourly rate.
Yeah, you may make $1 an hour.
Which is certainly not fair.
Yeah.
I couldn't live off $1 an hour. I'm sure you couldn't either.
No, not even close.
No, and so really having CIE as a way of life is crucial, really, to not only make sure that it's equitable, but also letting people they're living their best life. I talk about this all the time, is that, we all deserve to be paid the same, have these same opportunities, do a job that you love. And so I appreciate that breakdown of competitive integrated employment, because I think that's really something that we need to break a myth on, right?
Yeah.
We talked about
definitely.
Thank you.
You're
love it. A lot of times people with disabilities potentially could be hesitant to start working because that income could impact their benefits, such as like Social Security, Medicaid, and potentially could leave them without those important programs and independence. Do you have any advice?
This is my niche. Like,
Yeah.
this is, now I probably really get animated with my hands here. I'll try to sit on it a little bit. Because this is, there's a lot of myths and misconceptions out there. And yeah, we've talked about getting out and busting some of those myths, and there's a lot specific to this area. That being said, I certainly do not want to downplay people's fear. Our systems are complicated. Our public benefit systems, they're often not terribly user-friendly, and sometimes they don't work great together, but they're a vital, necessary piece for people to be out in their communities and be independent. And so they're very, very important. And people often really fight to get access to these benefits. So when a person goes through that process and they're told through all of these processes, well, you have to really emphasize how disabled you are and what you can't do and what you don't have and your need for these programs. And then we bring employment in after a person's eligible for all these benefits. And then we say, okay, now go to work. And then, like, wait a second. Wasn't I just told that I have to emphasize, or that I should, that to benefit me, I gotta emphasize what I can't do. And then the needle changes at that point. So we do have a lot of great programs out there in terms of benefits and how employment interacts with those benefits. So my advice would be, yes, you can have that fear, but make sure you're fully informed before you make your choices around employment, because of all of those myths and misconceptions that are out there. So how do you do that? In all 50 states, including Colorado, we have access to certified benefits counselors. And that's what I am. Been doing that for 20 years, as I mentioned at the start. We're certified and we're required to stay up to date to talk with people about, you know what, if you go to work, this is how it's going to interact with your specific benefit scenario, whether that's SSI or SSDI, or, you know, one of the gazillion doorways into the Medicaid program that we have available, your housing, your food stamps, all of those programs that are supporting your basic needs. How does employment fit into all of that? And so that's what a certified benefits counselor will do. And I would encourage you to access them. Again, in all 50 states, each state is going to look a little bit different in terms of how you access that and what funding streams pay for it. But they're available in all 50 states. The other way that I know we're going to talk about a little bit is to start that conversation through Colorado DB 101. So yeah, benefits counselors are a great way to kind of start and end that conversation and continue to follow along. So as you go to work in your career and you have that career advancement opportunity, or heck, a pandemic hits and you need to be unemployed, or you're laid off, or they ask you to continue to work and take a $2 an hour bonus pay because you're working during COVID. All of that stuff, a benefits counselor can kind of follow through and answer those questions and really help you understand before you're making these decisions about the true impact. And you're not listening to those myths and misconceptions that as benefits counselors, we've been out battling for a long time.
I'm ready for battle.
Yeah.
which is such a terrible way of like thinking it, but it almost feels like that sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that advice about benefits counseling. For our viewers and listeners tuning in, we do have another episode as part of this multi-part series where we featured Chantel, who talks all about benefits counseling a little bit more in depth. So if you have or have not listened to that yet, I encourage you to check that out too, because it can dive in a little bit deeper about what she just said. So you talked about DB 101.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to share more about that, because I think this is a really fabulous resource that people really need to know is available and how it can help them.
Yeah, definitely. So Colorado DB 101 is obviously specific to Colorado, but it's in existence in our state because of those grassroots partnerships and collaborations that happened years ago and ultimately got the money to fund it into legislation. So it's a result of people with disabilities leading the charge and saying, you know what our state needs, and then getting these other partnerships on board. So that's how we have it. but it's an online resource tool, online website. It's probably the easier way to say it. It's an online website where you can go 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and you can access employment information. What does employment mean? What kind of job do I want to do? You can explore that. And probably our biggest features on that website are our estimators. So we have 2 estimators on the Colorado site, and one estimator, you can go in, enter in, what do you specifically get in SSI or SSDI benefits? What do you get in food stamps? What does your housing situation look like? What do you pay in rent? Long list, I could go through a long list of questions, and you can enter that into the estimator, and then you can enter in any job scenario you want. You can make it up, you can put in what your current job scenario is, and click some buttons, and it will spit out, this is how we estimate work will affect your benefits. And so it's a great way to go in and figure that out and have that conversation. The other nice thing about DB 101 is that it does allow a person to explore and have those conversations and be anonymous. We talked about that fear that a lot of people have when it comes to what's going to happen to my benefits when I work. Well, some people don't even want to investigate that because they think, oh, if I go talk to a benefits counselor, if I go talk to somebody, or if I call Social Security and ask, then they're going to know I'm looking for work. And they're going to track me, and something may happen to my benefits. This is completely anonymous. You can go in and create your own My DB 101 account. You can save all of the articles that you like, that you want to read later. You can save your estimator sessions, all of that stuff. So, I should mention the other estimator that we have on our DB 101 site for Colorado is our Medicaid buy-in program. And Medicaid buy-in is, we have just an awesome program in Colorado. So I encourage you to learn more about it. And you can go in and use our estimator for the Medicaid buy-in to find out if you would be eligible for it, and then how to apply and all of that stuff. So it's a great website, co.db101.org, and go there and visit it. Now, if you're not in Colorado, you may have access as well because it's in 9 other states. Colorado was the 10th state to get it, and there's an 11th state coming on board. And maybe there'll be more states coming down the road. Again, right? If you want your state to get on board, might be part of those grassroots efforts that you start to pull together. If you want to know if your state has it, you can go to just plain db101.org, and it'll give you all the states that have it. Yeah.
What a fabulous resource. And I really, I mean, again, this goes to show like how great it is when people come together to use their voice to make change happen. And so 10 states is great. 11th on the board is great. But there's all these other states that are still, needing to kind of explore these, different types of, alternatives and great programming. So get out, use your voice.
Yeah, and if you want to contact, if you know your state is interested, I can get you that contact. Or it's probably on their website too, but we can help make that connection too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. And I'm also happy you mentioned Medicaid buy-in because a part of this multi-part vodcast series, we are going to have another episode talking all about Medicaid buy-in. So be sure to tune into that if you're curious on what on earth that is, because it's a very, very cool program also. Yeah. Melanie, thank you so much for your valuable time today. As we wrap up this conversation, do you have any last minute thoughts or anything else that you'd like to add?
I think I would just say, if anything I've said in this conversation today has sparked an interest or raised an eyebrow, if it resonates with you, is take that next step. Look into it more, find out more information, reach out to any of the organizations I mentioned, or if you just want that one stop to just get started, come to the Colorado Office of Employment First, and we'll help you get started. We can use as much support and as much advocacy to get those systems and mindsets changed that we can get useful.
And I think an important question that I have is you keep saying contact us. Yeah. Are you guys free of charge? Do people need to pay?
Yeah, we're free of charge.
Yay! Can't be free.
Yeah, definitely. We can get you connected and with other organizations that are working on the same things that we're working on, and that we work in partnership. And so yeah, we'll get you started, get you on your way.
Wonderful. Lots of really valuable information. I super appreciate your valuable time today. You shared some really important knowledge that I also learned from. So I know you, as our viewers and listeners, also really appreciate this information as well. So thanks again for your valuable time.
Thank you.
To everyone tuning in. We'll see you next time, and thanks for tuning in. Take care.